Sure, here's your engaging and suspenseful introduction. The dinner rush was in full swing at one of the busiest restaurants in town. The scent of sizzling steaks and fresh-baked bread filled the air as waiters weaved between tables, balancing trays of food and drinks. It was the kind of place where reservations were hard to get, and customers expected top-notch service. But for one man, the night was about to take an unexpected turn. As he stepped through the doors, he took a moment to glance around. He was dressed sharp, nothing flashy, just clean and professional. He had the confident posture of someone who had been here before, yet the second he approached the hostess stand, something changed. The manager, a woman with a sharp eye for the kind of customers she preferred to serve, looked him up and down. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're completely booked for the night," she said, not even checking the reservation list. The man raised an eyebrow. He had called ahead. He had confirmed his table. But before he could even get a word in, the manager's tone hardened. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The entire restaurant seemed to pause for a second. A few customers glanced over, sensing the tension. The man's jaw tightened, but he remained calm. "Are you sure about that?" he asked, his voice even. The manager folded her arms. "I don't think this is the kind of place for you." That was it. That was the moment. The moment when a split-second decision would change everything. Because what the manager didn't know, what she never even considered, was that the man standing in front of her wasn't just any customer. He wasn't just someone off the street looking for a meal. He was the owner. And in just a few minutes, she was going to realize her mistake. But by then, it might already be too late. This setup builds suspense while keeping the language natural and engaging. It leaves the audience hooked, eager to see what happens next. Let me know if you need any tweaks. The restaurant manager sighed, tapping her nails against the podium as she waited for the man to leave. She had dealt with difficult customers before, and in her mind, this was just another situation where she had to take control. The way he looked at her, like he belonged here, irritated her. She had built a reputation for keeping the restaurant's image just the way she wanted, high-end, polished, and catering to the crowd. The man didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice or cause a scene. Instead, he simply took a deep breath and glanced around the restaurant, as if he was seeing it in a whole new light. The staff, the customers, the way everything was running, he took it all in. And then with a small, almost knowing smile, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. The manager's expression hardened. "I already told you, sir, we don't have a table for you," she said sharply. But the man wasn't looking at her anymore. His fingers moved swiftly across the screen, sending a message. Then he slipped his phone back into his pocket and met her gaze. "That's fine," he said calmly. "I'll wait." The manager narrowed her eyes. Wait for what? Before he could answer, a waiter rushed past them, nearly dropping a tray of drinks. The manager turned to scold him, but before she could, another server hurried up, looking frazzled. "We just got a call," she whispered to the manager, her voice nervous. "The owner is on his way." The manager blinked, momentarily distracted. The owner? That was odd. He rarely showed up unannounced. In fact, hardly anyone had even met him in person. Most of the staff only knew his name from emails and paychecks. A man with power, wealth, and influence, but who preferred to work from behind the scenes. The manager straightened her shoulders. "Fine," she said. "We'll make sure everything is perfect for when he arrives. Just..." She turned back to the man in front of her, still standing there with that quiet, unreadable look on his face. "Get him out of here." The waiter hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea." The manager frowned. "Why not?" The waiter swallowed hard. His eyes darted toward the man, then back to the manager. "Because I think," he said slowly, "he is the owner." The words hit the manager like a punch to the stomach. She felt the air shift around her. the weight of her mistake sinking in before she even had time to process it. And the worst part, the man hadn't even said a word about who he really was. He was just waiting, watching, as everything unfolded exactly the way he knew it would. The manager's throat went dry. She stared at the man, searching for any sign that the waiter was wrong, that this was just some bizarre misunderstanding. But the way he stood there, calm and composed, told her everything she needed to know. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't offended. He knew. The weight of her mistake settled heavily on her chest. She had just humiliated the very person who had the power to decide whether she stayed employed or not. For the first time that night, she felt nervous. She forced a smile, though it felt unnatural on her face. I think there's been some kind of mix-up, she said, her voice suddenly sweeter. If you had a reservation, I'd be happy to get you seated right away. The man raised an eyebrow. Now you have a table for me. The manager let out a nervous laugh. Well, I must have misread the list earlier. These nights get so busy, you know how it is. She glanced at the waitstaff, silently urging them to move faster, to clear a table if needed. The other employees weren't saying much, but their expressions spoke volumes. They had watched the entire thing unfold. Some looked uncomfortable, others curious. A few, especially the ones who had been treated unfairly by the manager before, had a hard time hiding their satisfaction. The man didn't respond right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket again, pulling out his phone. The manager's stomach twisted. What was he doing? Was he messaging someone? Calling corporate? Was this the moment everything fell apart? But all he did was check the time. Then he slid the phone back into his pocket and looked up. Let's do something different, he said, his voice calm. Instead of a table, I'd like a tour. The manager blinked. A tour. Yes, he said, gesturing around. I'd like to see how things run here, how the staff is treated, how customers are handled. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, there was something sharper in his gaze, especially the ones who don't fit your usual expectations. A cold sweat broke out on the manager's forehead. This was worse than him making a scene, worse than him yelling. He was going to watch observe, and once he saw everything, really saw it, what would happen then? The staff exchanged glances. The energy in the restaurant had shifted. Servers who normally moved quickly were suddenly careful with their steps. The kitchen, usually filled with clanking dishes and shouted orders, had quieted down. For the first time ever, the manager wasn't the one in control. And she had no idea what would happen next. The manager forced another tight smile, but her hands were clammy. A tour. She had never been asked for that before. No customer had ever questioned how she ran things, and definitely not like this. She had spent years making sure everything looked perfect on the surface. Well-dressed staff, expensive decor, an exclusive atmosphere. But now, she felt like someone had ripped the cover off a book she didn't want anyone to read. Of course, she said quickly, trying to regain control. Right this way. She led him through the dining area, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Every step felt heavier than the last. As they moved, she could feel the tension in the room. Some customers were whispering, clearly sensing something was off. The staff moved carefully, stealing glances at the man, wondering what he would say, what he would do. They reached the back of the restaurant, where the atmosphere changed. The kitchen was hot and fast-paced, the smell of searing meat and spices thick in the air. Cooks rushed to plate dishes, waiters hurried past with trays, and dishwashers scrubbed at a frantic pace. The man didn't say a word as he observed. He watched the chefs, the servers, the hostesses. But it wasn't the food or the presentation he was paying attention to. It was the exhaustion in their eyes, the nervous glances some of them gave the manager when they thought she wasn't looking, the way a few avoided making eye contact at all. Then his eyes landed on a young waitress in the corner, wiping down a tray with shaky hands. She looked about 19, maybe 20, and the tension in her shoulders was impossible to miss. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You okay?" The girl hesitated, darting a glance at the manager. The manager's face stiffened. "She's fine," she said quickly. But the girl hesitated again. Then, in a voice so quiet it was almost drowned out by the clatter of dishes, she said, I don't want to get in trouble." The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. The manager swallowed hard. "Sir," she cut in, trying to sound firm. "With all due respect, this is a busy night. If you wanted to enjoy a meal, we'd be happy to accommodate, but—" "I am enjoying myself," he interrupted. His voice was still calm, still controlled, but there was an edge to it now. She flinched. Then, before she could regain her footing, he turned to one of the waiters. "How long have you worked here?" The waiter, caught off guard, hesitated. Almost a year." "And in that time, how often has management treated customers unfairly?" The waiter's eyes darted to the manager. She glared at him, silently daring him to say the wrong thing. His throat bobbed. I don't know if I should." "She won't be deciding who works here after tonight," the man said, his voice steady. "So tell me the truth." Silence. Then, finally, the waiter exhaled. "It happens," he admitted, "more than it should." The manager's stomach dropped. The man nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already knew. He turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "You've spent years running this place your way, deciding who belongs and who doesn't." He let that sit in the air for a moment. "But tonight, that asterisk changes." The manager's hands clenched at her sides. And in that moment, she realized something. This wasn't just about *1 mistake. This was about all of them. And the consequences were coming. The manager's pulse pounded in her ears. She had spent years perfecting this restaurant's image, keeping everything in order, making sure only the right kind of people felt welcome. And now, in a matter of minutes, that carefully built control was slipping through her fingers. But she wasn't about to lose without a fight. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders, forcing herself to sound composed. "Sir, I understand you have concerns, but you have to see things from my perspective. I make decisions to maintain a certain standard. It's nothing personal. She forced a small laugh. "I had no way of knowing who you were." The man studied her for a long moment. Then he tilted his head slightly. "So if I wasn't the owner, would you still think what you did was okay?" Her breath caught, and she struggled for an answer. Before she could speak, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from the front of the restaurant. A second later, a sharply dressed man burst through the doors, his expression tight with urgency. It was Daniel, the restaurant's district manager, and judging by the way his eyes darted between the man and the staff, he knew exactly what was happening. The manager's stomach twisted. Daniel rushed forward, stopping just inches from them. His face was slightly flushed, his breathing heavy, as if he had driven straight there without stopping. "Sir," he said, addressing the man with clear respect, "I apologize for any issues tonight. Had I been made aware of?" The man raised a hand, and Daniel immediately fell silent. The tension in the room grew thick. The entire restaurant seemed to be waiting, holding its breath. And then the man said something that sent a shockwave through everyone. "Daniel," he said, voice steady, "I want to hear your honest opinion. Have there been complaints about how this place is run?" Daniel hesitated, his eyes flickering toward the manager. Her heart pounded. He wouldn't. He wouldn't. But then Daniel exhaled slowly. "There have been concerns," he admitted, his voice careful, "about how some customers are treated and how some employees feel pressured to stay quiet." A murmur spread through the room. The manager's hands clenched at her sides. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, her voice sharp with desperation. Are we really doing this asterisk right here asterisk? The man ignored her. His focus stayed on Daniel. And how did you handle those concerns? Daniel hesitated again. Then shame flickered across his face. He swallowed. I should have done more. The words hit like a hammer. The manager felt lightheaded. This wasn't just an embarrassing moment anymore. This was serious asterisk. If Daniel, her superior, was admitting fault, then that meant... No, she would not let this happen. With a forced breath, she straightened, trying to salvage whatever was left of her authority. I have worked tirelessly for this place, she said, voice rising slightly. I have made it successful. I have built its reputation. And this asterisk is how I'm treated. Over a simple misunderstanding. The man's gaze didn't waver. You think this is just about asterisk tonight asterisk? Her throat tightened. Then, for the first time, his voice dropped lower, quieter, but somehow heavier than before. I know everything. Her breath caught. And in that moment, she realized he hadn't just been watching tonight. He had been watching for a long time asterisk. The manager's face went pale. She opened her mouth to argue, to defend herself, but no words came out. For the first time, she wasn't just out of control, she was exposed asterisk. The man took a step closer, his voice calm but unshakable. I've heard the complaints. I've seen the reports. I know about the employees who left because of how you treated them. The customers you turned away for no reason. His gaze didn't waver. I've let it slide for too long. But tonight, you showed me exactly who you are. The restaurant was silent. The staff, the customers, even Daniel, all of them were watching, waiting for what would happen next. The manager swallowed hard. Please just let me explain, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was only trying to keep the restaurant's reputation intact. I didn't mean. But you did mean to, the man interrupted, his tone unwavering. You made choices, over and over again, and now you're going to face the consequences. The weight of his words settled over her, suffocating. She had spent years climbing to the top, making sure she had power over everything that happened in this restaurant, and now, in a matter of minutes, it was slipping away. Daniel cleared his throat. Sir, he said carefully, what do you want us to do? The manager flinched. Not asterisk, her asterisk, not asterisk, we, asterisk, he had already distanced himself. The man didn't even hesitate. Effective immediately, she's done here. The words hit like a thunderclap. A gasp rippled through the staff. The manager stumbled back a step, shaking her head. You can't just fire me, she stammered. I built this place. I made it successful. The man's expression didn't change. No, he said. The staff did. The customers did. You just decided who was worthy of being part of it. She opened her mouth to argue, but before she could, another voice spoke up. Good riddance. The manager turned sharply, her eyes landing on the young waitress from earlier. The girl looked nervous, but she lifted her chin, as if finding courage for the first time. And then, another voice. Yeah, we all saw how she treated people. Then another, and another. One by one, the staff spoke up. Employees who had been too afraid to say anything before, servers who had been ignored, workers who had been forced to watch as good customers were turned away. The manager's breath came in short gasps. The walls of control she had built around herself were crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She looked at the man one last time, searching for a shred of mercy. But there was none, only certainty. With nothing left to say, she turned on her heel and walked out. The restaurant remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the tension lifted. The employees straightened. The air felt lighter, freer, as if something heavy had finally been lifted. Daniel turned to the man. What do you want to do now? The man looked around the restaurant, the place he had worked so hard to